So Keir Starmer is facing a dilemma. Brexit isn't working, his supporter base knows that it isn't working, yet he's continuing to insist that being outside of the EU is a good idea.
Of where we're at is that despite Sir Keir Starmer's best endeavours, the structuring of the Labour Party vote in particular, with reference to people's attitudes towards Brexit, is almost exactly the same now as it was 4 years ago. Yes, it is true. The Labour Party, relatively speaking, has gained ground amongst those people who voted Leave in 2016. That is true. However, one has already suggested a chunk of those people who voted Leave in 2016, who voted Conservative in 2019, who would now vote Labour, no longer believe in Brexit. They say they would vote to rejoin.
And if you really want to see how little sense this all makes, just watch this blistering interview filmed last year in Scotland. As Martin Geisler points out, it's becoming increasingly difficult to even make the democratic argument for Brexit, especially when you live north of the border.
Let me ask you about a broader immigration question, about Brexit. I mean, it is demonstrably clear from economic data that Brexit has been damaging to the UK economy. Why do you support us continuing to stay outside the EU?
We took a decision on leaving the EU in 2016 and we have now left. There is no case for returning to the EU.
So it's a democratic issue?
We took the decision to leave and we have left. So now what we need to do is, rather than just sticking with the deal we've got, which is not good enough, we need to make Brexit work. We need a better deal. We need to fix the protocol issues in Northern Ireland, which are totally fixable. We need to remove the barriers to trade. There are too many barriers to trade. And we need to create much greater cooperation and collaboration on things like security. I think that can be done. There is a better Brexit to be had. But we don't go back into the EU after the vote that we've taken and the division and the stagnation that all of the arguments after that caused.
Because it was the will of the people?
We had a vote on it.
See, here's the problem with that argument, that there's a party that stood with another vote on Scottish independence at the centre of its manifesto in the last Scottish elections, and they won at an absolute canter. It was the will of the people to have a referendum on independence within the term of this Parliament up here, and you say that shouldn't happen. Why do you protect democracy across the UK but deny it to the people of Scotland?
I listened and watched very carefully the arguments into that election here in Scotland, and all parties were saying the priority has to be recovery after COVID. I think Nicola Sturgeon was challenged to say...
But a referendum in this term was at the heart of her manifesto.
Just let me finish this, because she was asked in terms, what if someone wants to vote SNP but doesn't want independence, and she said that actually recovering from the pandemic was the single most important priority. So I actually reject the idea. All the political
That person
parties,
can still vote no at a referendum if they don't want independence. It doesn't mean there shouldn't be a referendum.
Every party going into that election last time here in Scotland was saying loudly and clearly, and rightly in my view, that recovery from the pandemic needs to be the central issue. Around people's tables tonight, they will be talking about whether they can afford to make ends meet. That is the central, most important issue, the economy, and the next election will be fought on the economy. And the choice will be carry on with this utter chaos and damage under the Tory party, or usher in a Labour government which will stabilise the economy and grow the economy.
That argument, that binary argument might wash south of the border, Sir Keir, but up here there is a third choice, which is break away from the Union. Do you think the people of Scotland should have the right to determine their own future or not?
Well, look, I'm talking about priorities and what is the priority at the moment. And for me, the priority is the economy.